This is Hunt Nebraska, the official podcast for insight into Nebraska's hunting and shooting sports community. Be sure to give us a follow on Facebook, our space for sharing stories, information, tips, and techniques. Now, Hunt Nebraska. All right, welcome back to another Hunt Nebraska hangout, folks. We're really glad that you chose us for your listening pleasure tonight and or viewing pleasure, because you can catch us on YouTube, but do appreciate the subscribe and the follow on any of the sound platforms you choose to find us on, and make sure you hit that subscribe button. That way you know the next time we drop our next live Hunt Nebraska. Real quick, we got some introductions to make. As usual, we got Kayla Gadeken over here behind the buttons, making things happen. We got Jeff Rawlinson over there on the odd mic. What's going on with your microphone, Jeff?
You know, I played with this thing, and I've played with this thing. And
we can hear it now. We can hear you playing with it.
So this is where we're at.
Good Lord. Don't play with it too much. It'll fall off.
I might. Ooh.
Sweet spot.
Wait a
like
sec.
that.
I
like that spot.
Folks,
right
that was drama right there. He's been spending 30 minutes on that, and he had to fix it when we went live. He fixed it in, 20 seconds? Was
Hero.
that about 20 seconds?
Hero.
Yeah. And over here, you can just kind of see him. He's the tallest one in the group, if you're keeping track of that. Hunter Nikolai. He's the only one here that's not with the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission, but he's one of our great partners from the National Wild Turkey Federation. He's the R3 coordinator. The rest of us, we're kind of the outdoor skills education area, coming to you through the Hunt Nebraska Facebook page and podcast as often we do. Folks, November. I mean, it is prime time. We've talked about it, but we got to keep promoting it because it's only 30 days long, right?
Yeah, but it's the month.
It is for a lot of different things. You've got the deer rut kind of hitting its peak. You got a lot of the hunting seasons hitting at their peak. There are not many that are left to open, to be honest with you, Jeff. I think we're there.
Yeah. Oh, we had a big opening weekend for firearm deer season here just a couple days ago. Now we're in the middle of our firearm deer season. Big deal here in the state of Nebraska. Excuse me. And we're looking for a big finish to that here this coming weekend. But the temps have been kind of up and down. We had some 40s over the weekend. Now we're getting some 50s and 40s again. But, that's okay. That's about where we're going to be.
There you go. And we've got the migration on. Turkey season's open.
Ducks
Pheasant season's open. Yep. Rabbit and squirrel, all that good stuff. We'll hit on a lot of that stuff today, but we're going to kind of zero in, pun intended, Hunter, on first-time firearms.
Oh.
Because this time of year, around a lot of the hunt camps, people start talking about, they start waxing nostalgia about their guns that they've owned, ones that they're, maybe hunting buddies of the past or family members have owned and all that type of stuff. There is some talk about the favorite calibers and which ones of the new ones are the best and why they're better than the old ones, or why the old ones didn't need to change and haven't for millennia type thing. So we're going to start this conversation first, talking a little bit your first firearm. Now that might have been a rifle, might have been a shotgun, but we're going to kind of keep out the pellet guns, the Red Riders, the BB guns, that type of stuff, because we're going to talk about firearms. The first actual gun that you had to go hunting with. And now we're going to start with Kayla, all right, for obvious reasons, because it's going to take Jeff a little while to think back that far to what was the first firearm. And Kayla, you're probably the youngest in the room, if my calculations are correct, and they rarely are, so it wasn't all that long ago that you probably got it. What was it? What did you use it for?
Well, it's a tie between my first shotgun and my first rifle, probably because I got them within the same year. So we'll just start with my first shotgun. It's a 20-gauge Browning Silver semi-auto.
Now, that's the one you talked about using for pheasant hunting already, correct?
I use it for everything, yes.
So, I mean, it fit right off the bat. That's been your go-to ever since.
It has been, yep.
All right, that's a nice gun.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's one to go with, yeah.
That one you probably almost have to win at some conservation organization banquet.
Almost, yeah.
You probably had to go to it.
Or you got to buy it.
Yeah. Luckily, my dad's wallet won it for me. So.
There you go. Did he buy it at a banquet?
He didn't.
He did?
I believe
Okay.
we went to Shields and we tested out a bunch of them, and this is the one I like the best.
All right. Well, since you brought up two, and you guys, Hunter and Jeff, you only get one.
I was going to say, do I get two for here?
No, because we'd be here all day. We'd be here all day. What was the rifle?
My first rifle is actually my competition rifle, which is a pellet rifle, so I don't know if that counts. You said no BB guns or Red Riders, so...
Ooh.
Yeah, it's got to be a hunting. It's got to be a,
but I like it.
got to be a hunting firearm.
Yeah,
Let's put it that way, because I'm
yeah.
guessing you didn't hunt a lot with your competition.
No,
Firearm.
they did not ever leave the range.
Still there today, in fact, folks.
They are.
So, Jeff, all right,
Yeah,
just
well-
because you're next, you're sitting beside Kayla today,
Yeah.
we're going to go with you. What
You know-
was the first hunting
And
firearm?
I thought it had something to do with age. I thought age had privilege here, but apparently not. It's just the seat arrangement. We'll go with that. My first hunting firearm was a Savage 20 gauge pump. Yeah, and I remember going down to Montgomery Ward's back when they sold firearms, so you can tell that was about 40 years ago. And Dad and Mom and I looked at it, and then Dad and I went back to the counter and laid the money down and walked home with it. And I mean, I bet I cleaned that thing 100 times before the first pheasant season. Loaded the shells into my bandolier and vest probably 100 times, about wore the paint off the shells, trying to get my vest stuffed and ready to go. And that was a big deal for me. But I have to say, and I know I said I only got one, but I have to say that the most memorable was the Christmas tree morning under the Christmas tree, opening up a Ruger Super Single 6.22 pistol. And that had probably the most phenomenal impact on my life as any gun ever had. That was a big deal.
That's pretty good. That was, what, early 30s?
Yeah.
Never looked back
Yeah,
after that
right
one.
on. 32
right after the
when it
Benton
went-
Robertson Act, Hershey. We're just on the other side of it.
But, all right, well, we'll give you that one. We'll have to talk about Christmas guns probably on another podcast as we get into gift, buying guides, which, as Hunt Nebraska, I think we almost have to, do that as a public service announcement.
A gun is never the wrong gift.
So,
It's always the right color.
all right.
Don't shoot your eyes out, kids.
Yep, there you go. Yeah,
Always good. Always really good. All right, Hunter, you're up.
My first gun was a Mossberg 500 pump action 20 gauge shotgun. I think it's a pretty common first gun for a lot of folks out there, but in my case was a hand me down from my older brother, which I think is still pretty common too. So then now that gun has since gone on to my little brother, so it's gone through the ranks, and my older brother's been the lucky one to get the new gun each time.
That's pretty cool, and that's something you and I share in common. My first one was a Mossberg, but it happened to be in a 1964 22 long rifle. My second gun happened to be a Mossberg 500, and I believe my third gun happened to be a Mossberg 512 gauge rather than 12. And one of the things, I'm going to toss this out there. I know this is something that we usually save hunting headlines for the end of it, but actually the chairman of the Mossberg and Sons Incorporated, Alan Mossberg, passed away recently.
Yes, I heard that. Read
that kind of sad there. I didn't know him personally by any means, but obviously that brand, that name, and that individual, the whole family,
What a legacy.
and company has had quite a legacy. You're exactly right, Jeff, because I think a lot of folks started out with a Mossberg shotgun, perhaps, in a lot of our listening area, or added that to the gun cabinet or safe, as it were. Workhorses, to say the least, oftentimes one of those things that we could afford. My first Mossberg 500 was actually, Jeff, you might remember the days when hardware stores often dealt
absolutely.
in
Bought a number of
ammunition
guns.
and firearms, and a lot of your hunting supplies. That's where you went to, was the hardware store. It was from the Coast to Coast hardware store.
Yep, exactly.
And it was called the Coast to Coast Mag Hunter, I believe, but it was made by Mossberg, and it survives. I mean, how many of you guys have your own? How many of you have your first firearm still?
I do.
Kayla does. It's passed down now.
Passed
but
down
still
in the family?
Yeah, mine was passed down to a friend of mine in high school who needed a shotgun. And so
For cash, I'm guessing.
Well, we negotiated a settlement which made us both happy, but passed down. And but going back to that Coast to Coast, my first hunting handgun, big game hunting handgun, came from Coast to Coast hardware store in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Really?
Yep. And I still have that gun today. That was probably back in 1988, 88.
That's one of those things that I wish we had. And there's still some hardware stores that dabble in that, but not near at the level. I mean, that was kind of special, going back to that corner and seeing all that type of stuff, and the calls and the camouflage and all that type.
Absolutely.
Which was a lot of fun. So Three of us. I still have mine. I have at least I've got the 22 rifle and the Mossberg 500. In fact, that Mossberg 500, kind of like what you were talking about, Hunter, it was not only, accounted for my first pheasant, my first quail, my first goose, duck, turkey, not my first deer. That was the 12 gauge, because I lived in a state and area that had to use shotgun. So we went 12 gauge on that one with the Mossberg. But then my kids. Both my kids took their first turkey with that shotgun. My son, who likes to dabble in a lot of diversity when it comes to hunting, first teal, duck, goose, that type of stuff. So it's still in the cabinet. It's worn. I got to assume your Mossberg is pretty worn on the wood stock.
Yep, absolutely. It's gotten a lot of good use, and there's been a lot of good stories, and that's what, when you're looking back at your first gun, or any gun for that matter, you remember the stories of being out there and the species and animals you've hunted with them.
The beauty of it is we didn't really care what it looked like.
No.
It was a tool.
That's right. It was a gun. I got my first gun.
Your Browning shotgun, your silver that you're talking about, that's a pretty gun. There's no doubt about it. You're probably pretty careful with that, knowing you, Kayla.
I was.
Once you get the first scratch, the rest of them are easy to follow.
I mean, I will admittedly say my Mossberg 500 got to, use as a shotgun in hunting. It got used for a canoe paddle once. It's been used to help push off some, beaver dams and things like that as well. It's been used as a crutch a time or two. I mean, it's gone through quite a bit. Doesn't look great by any means, but it's those memories that I think it goes, why is it, Jeff? Why are those first firearms so loved if you didn't sell it to your high school buddy?
Yeah. And reality of it is I got a lot of firearms that I had from my early years, but they are kind of loved. And, some of them, they work for you. If a gun doesn't work for you, it's worthless, right? Those are the ones I've moved down the road. But if they work for you, you shoot them well, they're comfortable, you like the way they look, whatever the case may be. And I'm very utilitarian. And so guns that I still have are guns that work well for me. I shoot them well, I hunt well, they carry well, what have you. I think that has something to do with it. And certainly who gave it to you. I think that always has something to do with it as well. Problem is sometimes at a young age, we're not yet smart enough to know what that means to us. And I'll be honest with you, I'd give a lot to have my 20 gauge back. In fact, I've contacted my old high school buddy here recently, and he gave it to his brother. And so he's talking to his brother as we speak about it, because I'd like to have that back, because that was something my dad and I bought at, like I said, Montgomery Ward, and it has a lot of meaning to me. Not smart enough to know it then. Obviously, as you get older, you become a little more intelligent about those things.
Well, I think you get a little bit more nostalgic.
I hope so.
I mean, I always go back to the whole idea, you ask most middle school or high school students, depending on where it's taught, what's your least favorite subject? And, math's right up there, don't get me wrong, but history. If they got to go through a history class, that's one of the things that they usually find kind of
I won't believe anybody
boring.
Thinks that's boring. History is the coolest thing on the planet.
But as you get older, and Jeff, maybe this is a great example, being the patriarch in this room right now, age-wise, I think you have to live a little history to really get an appreciation for that full thing. Because I think then you ask a lot of adults, what do you wish you spent a little bit more time diving into, or if you were able to go back to school, what are some of the subjects you'd probably find the most interesting now? Math still wouldn't score high, but I think history would. Yeah, I really do. No, I think we kind of have to live it to then really appreciate it.
I would agree with that. I'd agree with that quite a bit.
And so I think that first firearm is probably sometimes that thing as well. It was just, that's the first. I know there's probably better out there, because you see that as a tool. And a tool for opportunity, tool to go on hunts, to be able to do what you want to do. It's kind of that ends to the mean, but later on you start realizing, boy, that was kind of a nice gun. I did pretty well with it. You didn't even think about it back then. It fit well. It had great hunts with it, and those memories start going. And like they say, Kayla, with the bird dogs, that every bird dog has its flaws until it passes on to that great hunting spot in the sky. And then the dog has no flaws whatsoever. You just remember all the good points of it quite a bit. And I got to assume that's the same with firearms. You hardly ever miss with those firearms after you've had it.
It's kind of like that grass is always greener a lot of times. You'll look back to some guns and, by God, I did shoot that thing pretty well. Why did I ever get rid of that? Yeah, and maybe you don't shoot as well today because you practiced more back then. I don't know what. But if there was a word of advice, hold on to firearms. You know, nostalgic, what have you. Put them in the safe. If you don't use them, but they're going to have meaning to you at some point. Put them in the safe and hold on to them.
Yeah, I've got to say, my Uncle Mike was that was one of the first bits of wisdom he provided to me as far as shotguns. One was don't clean it that often because you'll take all the misses or the hits right out of it, which wasn't a great advice. But he said don't ever sell a shotgun. Yeah. And he had some butter smooth Remington 870 Wingmasters, Hunter, that just oh my goodness, you had to load them, but after that they kind of did everything else on their own. Problem is, just a few months ago, I was asking about those, and he said, I sold them.
Oh, gosh.
So sometimes we don't take our
his own advice. Yeah.
No.
You know, my brother-in-law is a prime example. I mean, he came from a big hunting family on the East Coast in Connecticut, Pennsylvania area. And he's had uncles, a grandfather and uncles who have passed away. And he's accumulated. They've made sure that, you know, different firearms went to different nieces or nephews. And he's accumulated various deer rifles that were used on all his hunt trips back east. As a kid, every year they'd go back east to go deer hunting. They'd hunt Nebraska, then head over to Connecticut or Pennsylvania or wherever the family was going to go that year. And, you know, he remembers hunting with his grandfather with the old Savage Model 99 in 300 Savage. And his grandfather passed away and left him that rifle and his Case sheath knife. And this was back when Case made those really nice, good metal sheath knives. Well, Case makes everything good today, but they were very nostalgic knives, sheath knives. And he still has that. And then his uncle passed away and left him his 742 Woodsmaster Remington 30-06. He loves that rifle because he hunted with his uncle with that many, many years. And so his goal has been, and he's been doing that, systematically harvesting deer with those rifles that were handed down to him. And I think that's cool. I really think that's pretty darn cool.
I think it really is.
It's right in there with your hunting traditions. That's another tradition. Passing down the rifle, passing down the shotgun.
Yeah. If I can live in passing, if I can still be a part of the hunt because you're using my pistol or my rifle, that would mean a lot to me. It really would.
Well, and I think that just kind of goes to the depth of actually what hunting is. It's more than just the actual pursuit. Perhaps it's more than the actual harvest for sure. Yeah. Because I mean, who doesn't get a little bit, nostalgic and excited when they open that bottle and get that whiff of hops number 9. Oh. I mean, it's just like, oh boy,
the clone of my youth.
Yeah, and there's certain outers products out there that I think squirrel hunt. As soon as I smell it, having to clean the 22 rifles, my dad's, mine, my brother getting into it, whatever, and it's just kind of like, wow, it's a scent. It's not necessarily a hunting scent, but it's associated with the gun, which was definitely a big part of it.
Yeah, good point.
So from there, obviously we didn't just stick with that one firearm. And we've got just a few minutes left. I know this one's a pretty short hangout today, but we've got a lot of things going on. What would be your next gun? What is going to be the next gun in your cabinet? Ooh. We talked about the first. Let's talk about the next, the newest. And Jeff, I know we'll give you a little bit more time because you've got a long list. So I'm
trying to narrow it down. As soon as you said that, I panicked. This is me panicking.
All right, Hunter.
Right now.
You got to go last the first time, so now you got to go first this last time.
Yep, I graduated on Mossberg 930 after my 500 and have stuck with that. I'm similar where I come from, a state where I shotgun only deer hunting and have then got a bird barrel for it too. So it's kind of your versatile gun where I can throw on a slug barrel or a bird barrel and use it then for multiple species.
And to put this in perspective, you moved here from Wisconsin.
Yep.
I moved here from the state just to the east of the muddy Missouri, which was shotgun only for deer as well. And I think for a lot of our listeners, if you're coming to us from Nebraska, this might sound different. But when you went to a gun store where I grew up, there were like 5 rifles back in the corner. And at least 3 of them were 22 long rifles. They were rimfire. That was it. I mean, if you were a coyote hunter, there might be a 22 250 over there or a 220 Swift or something along those lines. But the rest of the room, the rest of the wall, the rest of the this aisle and that aisle and the next aisle, shotguns.
Sure.
All shotguns. And so you had a lot of pick. I mean, shotguns are a thing of beauty. They really are. They're all about the artwork. They're all about the feel and the fit and the function. Where rifles sometimes are a little bit cold. I'm getting the evil eye from our UNL Rifle Club member, Kayla, over here.
I'm with her.
But
a shotgun.
So it was really an eye-opener when I went out-of-state hunting, and we stopped at a sporting goods store. that had a lot of firearms, to say the least. And I can't even remember if we just stopped there because it was, hey, we're going hunting and this is a hunting store, or if we had to stop by for more shotgun shells, because I think it was a bird hunt perhaps in North Dakota, or a waterfowl hunt. And I was blown away, Hunter, by, there's just like 12 shotguns here. That's it. And the rest of these are all rifles. What on earth have I walked into? It was different for me. Was that the same where you grew up in Wisconsin, more shotguns than rifles on the store wall?
Yep, I'd say so. I mean, Wisconsin isn't only shotgun. There is rifle hunting in certain areas of the state, but I'd say for the most part, pretty similar, where you're going to have majority of shotguns in your stores. And my dad and family were actually just out here this past weekend, and we went to Shields, and he was looking for a slug barrel for his shotgun, and there was no luck here, barely any selection on shotguns.
Not in this part of the country. Not as much, anyway.
Might not know what it is. I just remember going to the old Ottie's gun store there where I grew up, and if you were looking for a box of 30-06, he had it, but you had to dust it off. I mean, he had shotgun slugs and bird shot and all that stuff that he couldn't keep on the shelves. But it's just an interesting world now. That's a little different. And Kayla, we're going to go to you next. And I know, like I said, you've been part of the UNL Rifle Club. You've done a lot of rifle shooting in your time. That's where I remember you first, is getting on a shotgun range and getting in that rifle stance, ready to go, and just like, that might not work.
To this day, I still attempt to use that stance the first time I pull my shotgun out for the season.
Elbow on hip. Here we go.
Yep.
Now, what's going to be your next firearm?
Personally, I'm a little set with my firearms. It's kind of shocking to most people, but I'm looking for a shotgun for my fiance. He's just using some old beater shotgun that he found somewhere, so I'm going to get him something nice that he can bring out to the marsh or pheasant hunting with us.
So he doesn't embarrass you. I know what
exactly,
it's like. Yeah, that's right.
Nobody wants to be with that guy.
Clayton, you might just want to take pictures this time. Yeah.
He claims a shotgun isn't accurate, so.
I've got a lot of guns that aren't very accurate, it seems, at times.
All right, Jeff, here we go. One gun.
Those who know me know my forte is handgun hunting, and that's my passion. I hunt with everything: rifle, shotgun, muzzleloader, archery, all that stuff. But handgun hunting is my thing. Yeah, and all my handgun hunting has been with revolvers and single shot pistols, and specifically single action revolvers. But I would like to get a 1911 in a 10 millimeter with a red dot, and I think that would just make an awesome platform for a little more modern. I guess 1911. I wouldn't call it necessarily modern in terms of what firearms we have today, but a little more modern handgun hunting. I think that'd be kind of fun, and a hoot from the deer stand or ground blind to take in the field. I've bought and sold. I've gone through so many guns over the years. A lot of different guns that I've had that just didn't work for me. I'm very specific. I disagree. I don't think shotguns are a thing of beauty. They're tools. And to be used, and I mean, I beat up some of my tools. I use them pretty heavily. Handguns, on the other hand, that's a thing of beauty. That's something that you need to be somewhat cherish. Those, I mean, those are heirloom quality. Rifles as well. I'll give you that too. Good rifles are heirloom quality. But shotguns, I mean, those are just for using. I mean, there's nothing pretty about a shotgun, unless we're talking over unders. Now, if we're talking over unders, I can agree there are a thing of beauty there. So.
It's all the same, and remember, folks, not all the views expressed by Jeff are those of the Nebraska Game and Parks Agency or its partner organizations.
We're gonna pull that one.
Yeah, we do. Well, I think we're gonna have to wrap it up there, folks. I know this has been a short hangout, but it's November. We got to get outside. It's prime time. We want to make sure that you out there in listening world are doing the same thing. Take advantage of it. It's only 30 days long, so make sure that you sneak out any and every opportunity you have this month to pursue whatever it is there that the trips your fancy. But don't forget to give us a like on Facebook at Hunt Nebraska and subscribe to this podcast so we can make more. And we'll see you next week. Hunt Nebraska, brought to you by your Nebraska Game and Parks Commission.